But I bet there's a story or two that, when I say Sam LaMancuso, Jim Polaro's...
Yeah, I remember when he had hair. Well, the picture is so deceiving because he didn't have any hair in that picture either. See? And you know how it goes. I mean, you try to remember old things.
Sammy LaMancuso, my daughter used to walk around the house when she was in her, I would say 6 or 7 years old. And she would just, all day long, she would say, Sammy LaMancuso, Sammy LaMancuso. And mother would say something to her, and she'd go do what she's supposed to do, and then pretty soon she's going, Sammy LaMancuso, Sammy LaMancuso. But I was telling Tom Dill on the way up here, in '68, I led the points. I was leading the points at state line at the end of the year, and I had to finish like 18th or something to win the point championship. And it was a 100-lap race. Blackmer was leading after 50 laps. Blackmer was leading, Tom was second, and I was third. And I knew that Tom Dill wasn't going to let Bobby or RJ win that race because they had been feuding all summer anyhow. And so I'm just riding in third, and they're running side by side. They're running each other pretty clean, but they're using up all the racetrack. And I'm running third, and I know there's no way Tom's going to let Ronnie win this. And all I had to do was contend with one of them when the time came. And we got the white flag. Ronnie was first, Tom was second, I was third. And coming out of 2, Tom turned Ronnie. And the last I seen of them, they were both headed for the flagpole. And I kind of rode them both off, and I run hard down the straightaway. And I dumped it in the corner, and just as I did, I felt Tom against my quarter panel, and he turned me around. And he went on and won the race, and I stalled the car, and everybody missed me except Sam. And Sam hit me so hard. He broke my car so bad, I couldn't get that other 100 feet. And I wound up not winning the point championship. And every time I think of Sam, I have to think of that. I'm sorry, that probably ain't a real cool story.
That's okay, Jim. Very good.
I can't believe that many people showed up. Judas, Tom Dill, my God, I about giving him up for dead. Really and truly.
He said the same about you, Joe.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I don't doubt it.
He didn't knock you out of the way, did he, when you come?
Yeah, oh yes, yes he did.
He never did that on the track, did he?
Oh, hell no, not more than 4 or 5 times. I got to tell you that one time, was it Randy? What was it? I can't remember the photographer.
Gordon Mann.
Gordon Mann, right? He's selling pictures one day at State Line, and I'm looking at the pictures, and it's me. And I'm going around, and I look over in the picture, and it's Tom. He's going by smiling. I bought the picture, you know, and then I went out and I put it in the car. When I went out to the car, I spun him out. You know? And I said, here, smile now. Hey, payback is a bitch, I tell you. Yeah.
But me too, I'm glad to be still breathing.
Well, the other thing, they all have remembrance of you, Tom, walking in and kind of moving them out of the way. I don't understand.
No.
That didn't happen, did it?
Oh, no. Maybe once or twice. Nice guy.
Nice guy?
Nice guy.
Well, that's nice, but there's got to be more to that.
We never had any serious difficulty, ever.
Really? He just got out of the way every time you drove by him?
No. He ran good.
Yeah.
And he ran clean.
Did you find yourself ever in a situation where, well, that was Sam's reputation? As a driver, it was just a...
Yeah, I think he always drove decent and never got pushy or tried to drive over him.
Well, coming from you, that's an amazing statement, Tom Dill. Tom Dill, more people have had more fun talking about Tom Dill. What was his reputation as you were sitting there watching this play out?
Tom was a jokester. There's several pictures of Tom in some of the State Line Speedway magazines, where he's in the race car, going around the turn, wide open, with a big grin on his face. I mean, you could see his teeth. He's laughing. I never knew why, but that was Tom Dill. He was a character, I'll tell you. He still is.
Yeah. His reputation was one that he didn't mind hitting you a little bit and moving you around a little bit.
Oh, no. He reminded me of Dale Earnhardt in later years. If you, Tom would give you a nudge and let you know he was there.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you'd probably be around and he'd be going around you. But yeah, he was a character.
Did you get up get out of a box or what? You look at
You told him that?
yeah, that's my buddy. You look like you just got up out of a box.
Tom never moved you around, did he?
No, him and I are close. He probably thought the same thing of me. But I remember Sammy back in 1947.
Wow.
The Penny Royal Racetrack, Leon. Sammy and Carl Pentagro and Stinky.
Stinky?
And, yeah. He looks good, that little rascal. He's our mayor.
Yes, he is.
He's our mayor.
1947 with Sam. And what was his reputation as a driver, Floyd?
Sammy?
Yeah.
None of us had any in them days. We just got our first race car in them days was a 31 Chevrolet with the body cut off with a little wooden flatbed with a bedstead on the back of it for a roll bar. We used to tow it from Randolph to Leon on a rope.
My God.
And when we'd stop on the way and take a break, have a picnic, drink a little lemonade, and go on up to swallow some dust. And that's what there was, a lot of dust.
So it sounded like it was a hobby. And did your work paths cross with his over at Cusimano Brothers?
Sammy, Pete and Barney and when they had 100 years ago, when they had the junkyard and little garage, their job down on the hell is it, Water Street. That's where it all began. Down what year that was? Don't ask me. I don't know.
Right, right.
It was before, right after the war,
Okay.
and they were just treated us kids just. You know, they always treated us good. If we needed a part for anything, they never charge it. They give it to you.
Right.
Go take it off, you can have it. But, they were nice people. It's been a long time. My brother Bud got into racing when he got discharged in 1945. And it just went on from there.
Yeah.
I was old enough to grease the wheel bearings and carry the water. And that's mostly what I did. It was just something we all took up.
So were you all from kind of the same neighborhoods? Was it?
Not really. I lived in Celeron. All them guys lived in Jamestown and surrounding area.
Yeah.
And
Just a curiosity. If you had to think of an incident or two where Sammy LaMancuso was involved, maybe with you or with somebody else that you remember, can you think of an incident or two?
I just remember the team races that you had, but with Sammy and the rest of the guys. And Sammy was always a good guy to run with. You could always trust him behind you, or wherever. Sammy was a good, clean competitor.
Right.
And that's more you can say for a lot of them.
Some of them in the crowd, maybe?
Oh, yeah. I never held back any feelings for them guys. They all know, they all know that.
We may have heard that once or twice. I'm not sure.
You know, but no, they're all a good bunch of guys. I've really it's been a joy knowing them people.
So all those years you raced with Sam, you never had a problem with him, huh? That's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. Pete and I used to argue quite a bit.
Oh, okay.
Someday I'm going to get something to beat you with. It might be a sledgehammer. There was a guy I'd never seen a man like Pete Cusimano in my life. He could work an end wrench faster than you and I could work a ratchet.
Really?
He was unreal. He was just a fabulous mechanic. And an awful nice guy. The whole family were nice people. And whenever I get in trouble with anything, I go down there, and they taught me a lot about the body work, how to do body work, and then Pete taught me a lot about leading and stuff like that. You don't need to have to know that anymore. You hit these new cars with a little bit of heat, and they'd warp clear to the back tailgate. You would they're just, but they taught me a lot, and like I say, we're pretty close-knit people, all of us, really.
That seems like.
And I know I'm, at least on my part, I don't know what the hell they thought of me, but I don't even dare ask sometimes.
Well, I think the general feeling, Floyd, is whatever happened years ago is over, and we're all friends now.
I hope so, Randy.
That's what
I hope so.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I hope so.
Story of how you at one point actually had Sam drive your car.
Oh yeah. That was
What was the story behind that? All that.
well, it was I bought a car, and it wasn't a very good car, and it's all I could afford. I never drove a race car before in my life, and I started right out with a late model. I don't know what I was thinking, but that's what I did. But I was spinning out all the time. I was lucky if I could make a lap without spinning out, and I figured I was just learning. And then after a while, I began to think maybe it's the car, you know. One night, Sammy, I can't remember, I think his water pump blew up or something went bad in his car during a heat race. And that same night, I was starting on the pole for the feature, and I asked Sammy if he'd like to drive my car in the feature. Maybe he could drive my car and see if there's something wrong with the car, or is it all me? Well, I drove the car up there and lined it up on the pole, got out of it, walked away. Come to feature time, Sammy walked over, he got in it and went out there and won the feature. Well, I thought, oh boy, must be something wrong with me. It must be the car's perfect. He comes in and says, that's the only car I've ever driven. I had to start turning the wheel in front of the flagman in order to make it around the turn. He says, your steering has got way, way, way too much play in it, you know. Well, to make a long story short, Sammy helped me get my car straightened out to handle, but the funny part about this is Len Briggs, one of the track owners, came over to me, and he was really mad, I'll tell you. He says, Ken, you can't do that. He says, I can't start a veteran on the pole. Well, I never really gave it a thought. I mean, I wasn't trying to pull a fast one. I wasn't worried about winning a feature. I just wanted somebody to drive my car and see if there was something wrong with the car, you know. I had no idea he was going to win the feature in my car, but I don't think Sammy did either. But anyhow, it was a good deal, because he told me what was wrong with my car, and eventually I got it straightened out, and eventually I could win a race myself. You know, but I just needed some talent to drive that car, you know. But yeah, he did a good job, and well, then I tell you, somebody asked me one time if I ever got paid for that race, and no, I didn't, and I don't know if Sammy did. I'm beginning to wonder. Maybe they were so mad they didn't pay anybody. I don't know, and I got to ask Sammy that question. I don't know.
Oh, that's right. We can resolve that today.
Yeah.
Well, what else does Sammy LaMancuso mean to Ken Shearer?
He was a good guy. I mean, everybody called him Slammin' Sammy. I never had any trouble with Slammin' Sammy. He wasn't Slammin' Sammy to me, you know. No, he was a good guy to run with, and he was probably an instigator to me too, because me and I lived downstairs from him. Every Saturday night, I'd see him pull his race car out. This is before I bought a car, you know, and boy, I'd watch him pull that out and hook it up, and I thought, man, I'd love to do that, you know. And so he's probably the one that really got me going on this, you know. So I figured if he got me going, he ought to be able to get me straightened out, you know. But no, he was a good guy to run with and help you. He'd help you anything you needed. He'd help you in the pits, you know. I mean, good guy to run with. I really enjoyed it. And I wouldn't miss this party for the world.
Sammy LaMancuso, big time. I mean, we go back a long ways.
Yeah.
I've known Sammy as long as I've known my father, basically.
Yeah.
And we worked together. When I was 16, I went into the service department, which he was service manager of the Dodge dealership here in town, which the family owned.
Right.
And I worked for Sammy. Worked for him for, I don't know, I was 16 years old. I didn't leave there until I was probably about 32. I think I got my own business. But I worked with Sammy all those years, and he taught me an awful lot.
Did your dad get into racing because it was good for the business, or did he get into racing because he was just plain interested in racing?
Hell, he didn't care about business advertisement. He loved the sport. He loved it, yeah. Well, he and Sammy always been into that. And that's why he got along so good with Sammy, and that's why Sammy thought so highly of my father, because I mean, they were two of a kind. Two of a kind, since I can remember. Like I say, Sammy's been around as long as I can remember. I can't remember never having Sammy around.
I know Sammy was always a good man. He never complained. You lined him up, and he was ready to go. And him and Joe Sonner won that big race there one night, and it was just terrific. You know, the local guys won it, and it was a super race.
Now that was the team race?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did that work, Marv?
Well, they run so many laps, and then they changed drivers and cars would go out on the track. And as I remember, it's been quite a while ago.
It was that first year, 56 as I recall.
Yeah.
But with Sam, I remember being to Erie, I think, for the season ender, but I don't know what year that would have been. My guess is like maybe 61 or 2, but I know he had a 59 Ford. I'm pretty sure he won the season-ending 100-lap or what, at 59 Ford. I do remember being there that night. And then I know after that, I remember when he had the blue 62 Ford, because of course by then I was around Julian quite a bit. So we had that's when we had that chestnut and white Ford I told you about that Cale had. So those were the two cars that I remember back then. Later on in the 70s, when I had the car with Scott and we had the Duster, well, of course, I think Sam still had a Charger then, if I remember right. And I'm not too certain, but when he still has that Charger. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he does. And I know he used to be a hard guy. I know he used to. 101. I know he used to be a hard guy to pass, because even when we had the small block car and we were pretty fast with everybody at that time, he used to run heat races and stuff against him. He was really a tough guy to pass.
Sam and I grew up together. We both worked at Cousin Manuel Brothers Garage on Water Street after school. And Sam and I bought our first stock car together.
Oh, really?
We went to Sherman. We bought a 1935 Cadillac. We didn't have I had the license, I think, and I don't think Sam did. And we didn't have no license for the plate for the car, but we drove it home from Sherman. And we got close to Jamestown. We got a flat tire, and we drove the damn thing all the way home with a flat tire. We got it down. We worked for Cousin Manuel Brothers, and we had this big heavy body on it. So Sam and I, we cut the body off with cut most of it off. And of course, in them days, the dashboard was wood. And we cut it, and then we went to races up on Big Tree Sugar Road that day. When we come back, the car had burned up. The wood caught fire. that was our first experience with a stock car. That was around 64 years ago.
Oh, my.
I can't remember a bad incident with him. He was always in front of me most of the time. So well, you know how it goes.
Awfully kind, Jim.
But you go back so far.
Oh.
How did it really begin?
I remember Sammy getting out of Korea.
Yeah.
Or coming back from Korea in 1951, I believe it was. And that's when I met him. I was 10 years old, and I saw him pulling up with his uniform still on. At the time, my dad and uncles had started Cusimano Brothers on Water Street. They had an old barn for a garage.
Was that right?
A tornado came through, 1940s, mid-40s, and knocked the barn down, so they built a new building. And I can remember Sammy helping them lay the blocks, nailing up 2x4s and so forth. And they had my grandfather brought a gallon of Italian wine. Everybody was sampling. Well, Sammy sampled about 16 glasses of it and knocked him right. I remember him sitting on a block, and he fell over backwards on his back. And that's where he stayed for about an hour. But memories are unbelievable.
Yeah.
He started racing, when he got out of the Army, and I was with him for most of it. Sandy was probably the easiest going guy that I've ever known. He never complained about anything. He took his lumps and he gave them back, but in a subtle way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a gentleman, always a gentleman. And like Chuck said, never anybody ever said a cross word about Sammy.
Sammy and Bucky and I don't know who all was there working on his race car. He had a Studebaker back then. Studebaker Lark. Or Hawk, yeah. He had a Lark later on, but and he didn't know me, I didn't know him. But I started hanging around there and got to know him. And we've been real good friends ever since, but it just kind of happened kind of strange, I thought. And then later on, I don't know, 2-3 years later, whenever it was, when he moved, him and Kenny Johnson rented a garage in the alley down behind the police station, the old city hall. And I started hanging out down there a lot and helping them more, got more involved, and it just kind of snowballed from there. It was, I was having fun, and I don't know how much help I was, but just hanging around and being with him. And Kenny,
Part of the crew, huh?
yeah. And Kenny Johnson was, they both had their cars in there then.
Did they exchange a lot of information between the two?
Oh yeah. They were good friends, and of course Kenny since passed away, but not long ago. But and I started going to the races and hanging around, and that's how we got started.
Principal players in the crew, aside from yourself?
Well, Bucky Cusimano. Sammy did most of the work himself. I mean, honest, as far as building the car and stuff. I mean, Bucky was kind of did the body work, because that's what he did. He worked in a body shop and stuff, so he would keep the car looking good, and I just did whatever he needed. I mean, I helped him out doing whatever needed to be done. Bucky and I were always standing watching the races and thinking, why don't he do this, or why don't he do that, or get inside, or do something. But he won some big races.
He won a few races. He won some big races.
What was his style? What was there? Can you describe?
He wasn't no hurry usually, but he was there at the end most of the time.
Right. Avoid traffic. I mean.
I had no trouble with Sammy.
Yeah.
And today he's a good, loving guy.
You know, I can remember seeing Sammy for the first time in my life, probably back in the 50s, late 40s even, when Bucky's dad and his brothers originated the Cusimano Brothers Garage on Water Street. And Sammy had just gotten out of the military. He had served in Korea. And he used to shimmy up a rope or a chain fall or something down at the garage in those days, and I just thought this guy was unbelievable. And I've known him for over 60 years. He's a tremendous human being. But one story that I can recall is Sammy and I, not unlike most people, never had a cross word. I mean, Sammy's always been a gentleman. And I'm working for Cusimano Brothers on Buffalo Street, and this is probably in the late 60s, early 70s, and I had sold a used car. Sammy was a service manager, and I went out to him the next morning. I said, Sam, I've got a car sold that I have to deliver at 2 o'clock today, and it needs to be inspected. I'll take care of it, he said, and he always did. Well, they were busy that day, and it was about probably 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and the car still hadn't gotten into the shop, and I was getting a little antsy. So I walked in, I said, Sam, you've got to get this car in. Look, he said, you go sell your cars, I'll take care of servicing them, okay? And I took a rage, and I was just beside myself, and I'm walking out of the shop, and I see this cardboard box laying there, and in anger, I kicked the box thinking it was empty, and there was a big steel gear in it, and I broke my toe, and the pain went from my toe to my brain in a split second, and I thought, I'll never argue with Sammy again. And that was the Sammy story, and that was a good story. But Sam has been a tremendous human being his entire life, and never heard anybody say a cross word about him. He's just a heck of a guy, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
Watch these guys go out there and climb into what we thought was a super stock car, because you know, Daytona to us was a dream. Because don't forget, it didn't happen on TV, I don't think, till '68 or '9 on TV, and up to that time it was our Daytona. And so local boys like myself that hadn't been to the Daytona, we could only hear stories of Sammy telling us about guys that he had been with down there. So to us, every week was a grand day, you know, whether it was Bobby Snars winning a race or Sam or Squirt, one of the guys. I guess back in them days, you know, incomparable till today to racing, it was still about winning the race. And no matter how slow the cars were, how fast, them guys hated each other at the end of the race, and the next Saturday night they come and they were all friends again and they were waiting. So, you know, that's what I remember about the guys, is at the end of the race, someone spun somebody out, or, you know, Bobby Snars was smart enough to get down inside of them and take it on the last lap or last 2 laps, or Tom Dill would get out there and he'd be hanging his back. If you remember, Tom would come around the racetrack, he'd have that thing just hanging out, big motor, and he'd be just screaming, and no enough, he'd take somebody out. It would happen. You know? There they would go. So to me, you know, the history that I remember is that the old guys, the legends that made it and were our idols back then, always were good to the fans. And we watched them race and fight so hard to win in a time where the tracks were dirty, the cars were rough, but at the end of the day, it was about winning. And it's still about winning. You know, $1 million later, and you know, take a look at Sammy's car, the 27L, which probably cost all of $2,000, $3,000 to build. Today, where they build a car for $50,000, at the end of the day, he still wanted to win that race. And it was just as important when he won that big race to him as it is today for someone to win. So what we learned, or what I learned from that, and I guess our relationship with Sam, and he's been a dear friend, is to do it the best you can do. And that's Sam LaMancuso. Whether you call Sammy at 2 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Sam, my car doesn't run, what do I do? He's there, and the car runs when he leaves, and it always amazes me, especially today, you know, with the new cars. You call Sammy and say, my car won't run, what do I do? He comes down the garage, and you know, it runs. And he still knows that. He may be 80 by a number, but his heart surely isn't that. So that's what I recall, and Sammy being a role model to us younger guys, and always was, and still is. I mean, still an inspiration to us. My recall of, you know, Sammy really is, you know, even from racing. And you talk to Dr. John and all the boys, Donnie Kuzaman, all the guys that worked in that car, we were like Sammy's flock. And, you know, I think everybody still calls Sammy when you run into, and you can't find a part, and you want to do something for a car or a battery, it doesn't matter. I was just telling somebody out there, you know, they said, well, what's your relationship with Sammy? 3 years ago, we're going to Florida. I go to start the motorhome up, battery blows up. Who do you call? Sam LaMancuso. I call Sammy. He says, Sammy, you won't believe this. What do I do? He went to Napa, gets the batteries. An hour later, I'm running down the highway. That's Sam LaMancuso. I mean, that's what Sammy continues to do. And my best guess is he'll be doing it for another 10 years, and we'll be here at the 90th doing it again, and he'll make it happen.
Everybody's pausing to reflect a little bit on Uncle Sam. What's he mean to Dr. John?
Well, obviously, I was blessed to be raised in a family with an Uncle Sam in it. Yeah. You know, he was a big part of our life. He was a celebrity in our life growing up. You know, and as a kid, going to State Line and going to Erie's. I mean, we waited for the weekends. We couldn't wait till the weekends to be able to experience that. And he was just a great guy, and he was family oriented. He was competitive. But the one thing about him that stood out from the standpoint of how he affected the rest of his family was he was a perfectionist. And we all have that kind of quality. And that basically came from him. You know, it wasn't about right or wrong. When he built the race car, it wasn't about right or wrong. It was going to be perfect. And because of that, it wasn't always the fastest car. Sometimes it was, but it wasn't always that way. But it was perfect. And that's the way he's lived his life. There's only one way to do it, the right way. And we learned that from him. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, he's got a great sense of humor. You know, he's very active. He's always been a real active guy physically. And, you know, he's got a great reputation. Let me tell you, as a physician, I obviously moved away for a long time and went to medical school and training and came back to practice. And the one thing that it meant to me professionally was that when I first started practice, I tell you, 70% of patients come in my office and say, is Sam your father? Is Sam your brother? Is Sam your uncle? How are you related to Sam? He had a great reputation, you know, and that made my job easier because people trusted me. I was dealing with the health and life and death issues and health care of issues of my patients. But that trust that people had for me because of him made my job a lot easier. It was a great thing, and it still is. I hear stories every day from people still, 27 years later, since I've been here. There's a lot of comical stories about racing. One of them, he was racing at Jamestown Speedway when he was probably 17, 18, it was in the it was the late 40s. And he used to wear a welder's helmet, because he didn't have a regular helmet then. Not many guys did. His welder's helmet had an elastic chin strap. And he'd go down the backstretch, and the wind would pull the helmet off his head, like this. Then he'd hit the turn, and the helmet would go back down on his head. He'd take off down the straightaway, the helmet would go back up again. Then when he slowed down, it would go back on his head. But those are the kind of crazy things these old race time drivers did, you know, that was really, nowadays, we couldn't envision that. You know, he's a great man. He really, truly is. He didn't have much education. I don't think he went to the high school, let alone graduate from the high school. You know, but he was very, you know, naturally intelligent, and he learned quickly, and he's just, there's a lot of great things about him, and that's one of them. You know.
Mike Latone is going to do something which involves you, and he may or may not have told you that.
Right,
tonight.
he did tell me about that. Yep, that's a great thing.
You were one of those car rats.
Yeah, I was. You know, and I was more fortunate than my Uncle Sammy's children because they were younger, and I was a little older, so I got to go to a lot of the races when he was in his prime and see all those things. And my cousins were not able to do that. As a result of that, of my being able to hang around them, I saw all the cars, you know, get built and painted and raced and banged and refixed, and you know the whole 9 yards. It's a long season, and there's a lot of work involved. But I was able to be a big part of a lot of the things he did racing. And the last car that he had was a 72 Charger, 72 model. I'm not sure what it was, a 3 or a 4, but it was a 72 model Charger. And that was beautiful. It was a beautiful car. His brother-in-law, his wife's brother, was Jim Spring, who was a detail painter, and he had always took pride in making my Uncle Sammy's cars look a little better. And that car was beautiful. I mean, I didn't want him to race it. You know, he took it to. I don't know if they went to the mall then when they had the pre-state line, you know, where they would show the cars before the racing season started. And that year he won as the best-looking car, and he's got a trophy for that. And that car, he hung on to it. You know, he smashed it up a few times and raced it a couple years, and he still has it down his house. So hopefully, you know, Mike's talking about redoing it. I think it's a great thing, and my uncle would be excited about it.
We're going to have this 10th anniversary movie premiere, and foremost, to create the aura is to get your car, because you have 27L still in existence, up and going, and we've already cleared this with the police department. So I mean, we're talking police escort. I mean, this is great, but we got to get the car up and going, and we'll travel to this event, turn it into a kind of a speed network expose, but we need to pull it all together. So we happen to know somebody in our room who's sitting next to you that might be interested in being the crew chief, but he needs some designation. He needs some encouragement. So, Sam, if there's anything you can do to encourage Mike to be the crew chief, to pull this car together so we can have it for one more time, the last lap.
So that means you got to.
The pay is not good, but
what we want to know is it can happen. Will you make me the crew chief?
Absolutely.
If the original guys want to come back, and I've talked to all of them, the doc, starting with the doc, to Johnny, to your nephews, they all want to be part of it.
Don't forget Neil, Bucky.
All of it, that's correct. Yeah. And if you say yes, when I get home in the spring, in April, the car's coming out, and I'm taking charge with it. And you're standing clear, and it's going to happen. And the car will be done in 60
There's no engine in it.
The car will have an engine.
It's up to you.
Is there an engine available?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There is one available.
And got a transmission lined up right now, and it's all in the process. As long as you say yes, and it's on tape.
It's so stinking wrinkled up, it's a mess.
And I got it. No. Oh, no. No, I even have a body shop that has agreed to do some work on it.
They need a lot of putty.
That's
This
okay.
guy here says he's changed an engine or two. in
Yeah,
his
I
life.
know he has.
And he said he'd help you.
Oh,
He'd
that'll-
help. Floyd would help.
Okay, Floyd. Well, good.
You need your help.
Well,
Okay, it
Greg,
sounds like it's a deal.
it sounds like a plan.
Sounds like you're going to be the flunky on this team too, Floyd.
I don't remember what happened to my helmet.
Well, we'll have to find the helmet.
Much has changed.
The fire suit I still have.
The fire suit, really. He's
belongs to
promised.
Mike.
He promised me that fire suit, and I told you, and I want the fire suit for my garage. I mean, I want that next to Kyle's in my case, and he promised it to me, and
I did. I'll find it.
and I'll get it, but that's okay. We'll have you in the fire suit up there, uptown. We'll have the fire suit on you.
We're going to
And,
drive the car with dirt street.
Absolutely. We're driving the car.
You're going to get picked up on Arnold Street.
Yeah. Hey.
I used to go up and down Arnold Street all the time.
Greg even called the mayor.
Is that right?
We cleared it with him. He says, "Oh, absolutely, no
The
problem."
police chief has already agreed that they're going to have a police escort. We got this covered. So this will be right according to Hoyle. So
I think it's going to be
You
exciting.
better have a fast car, tell them.
That's what I wanted to hear. Fast car. That's what I wanted to hear.
He can. Let me tell you, boys. He can still drive them. He can still ship them. So
I want to see him dump the clutch and light it up.
he will. Oh, he will. It's
Yeah, we'll probably
Okay.
break something, though.
no.
well, that's great. All right, it's a
Okay,
deal.
it's done. It's
It's a
over.
deal then. Okay, Sammy. It's a deal, buddy.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Taken care of.
And
Okay. Good deal.
Floyd will help.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
We got help. We used to drive them from Clinton Street over there on Arnold Street without any police escort.
I'm sure at some point you had an escort.
Yeah, later in the night.
Yeah, just never caught up with you.
The escort got lost.
An escort downtown.
Here we are on the 80th birthday of one Sam LaMancuso, and we have Sam LaMancuso in front of us. Were you surprised tonight?
I was shocked to death.
Yeah.
I had no idea this is all going on, and I'm here every day.
Yeah. I obviously didn't take you into the confidence. Yeah.
We were supposed to go out to dinner when my kids are all here,
Right.
and we were supposed to go out to dinner tonight. So we got to stop at the garage and pick up my son Sam. He's going to leave his car off to get work done tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I get here and I see this showroom full of people. I figured something was up. But some of them, when I first going down the street, I didn't recognize a lot of them.
Yeah.
They got old, you know. So then when I turned in the driveway and I see a Neil Boardman and his wife, I knew something was up.
Yeah. Well,
But
you
I
have some
was stunned.
Well, some people obviously think so highly of you that they came great distances, and I think of guys like Jim Scott and Tom
Oh,
Dill.
God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Even our Chrysler rep from Batavia, he's from.
Yeah.
He's here. A lot of the service managers from the surrounding area, all here. I just can't get over it.
Well, it's a real tribute to you. And I must tell you, we've interviewed a lot of guys looking for some funny stories about you. And, you know, they hold you in the highest esteem. You know, why do they do that? What have you done to them?
Nothing, but maybe that's why. I don't know. Like I was telling one guy, I was always too small to get too cocky anyway. So. But it was a lot of fun years, and I enjoyed seeing a lot of these people tonight. God, Ronnie Blackmer was out there. Kenny Shearer was out there. Brad Clark.
Right?
Unbelievable. Tom Dill, it was nice to see him. And Scotty.
Scotty, yeah. Well, they're here because of you. And it's
Well,
a real tribute to Sam LaMancuso.
I'm honored, believe me. Very honored.
It was so much so that even a guy like Mike Latone is willing to redo your car to bring it back up.
Leave it to him, I'll tell you. Oh, man. I told Mike, the car is all wrinkled. It's bent up, and that's nothing. Well, okay. God, that'll be great.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's all. This is so much fun today for us. I mean, we had no idea, and I must tell you that your family members have gone out of their way to just put you as a role model. They just see you as a role model. In fact, the question we're going to ask you is, given your you probably never thought as celebrity status, but here you are on Arnold Street, and the kids are flocking around you. Did you feel a little pressure to sort of maybe act a little differently than maybe you might have otherwise? Just because so many kids were hanging around?
I really think so. And another thing I never did, I never drove fast on the road because, number one, I was afraid to. Because if you get in trouble, then they say a race car driver gets in trouble. But I always tried to follow the law, and I always had fun with the kids. And they loved it. Every time that car would start, they'd come from all corners of that neighborhood. I mean, you'd see kids coming down on bikes, kids running down the street, and then I had to give them a ride up and down the street.
Of course.
Load the car up with all these kids and take them for a ride in it. But it was really a lot of fun.
And I was going to say, I bet Saturday nights were big LaMancuso nights at State Line. You would have quite a following.
Quite a bit of them were there, yes. As a matter of fact, I got one picture, I think it was the mid-season championship that I won, where a lot of the family was there, and they're all like Dr. John and them. They were just little, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you've created quite a legacy here, Sam, and congratulations.
What an honor to even hear that word. I'm glad I had an effect on somebody.
Well, you have on a lot of people in this crowd today is a tribute to you.
They're so wonderful, every one of them.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I don't know how many people was out there, but there's a lot of them. I have no idea how many. Oh, they're going to be all of that.
At least. Oh my God.
And they were coming and going too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think when the day is done, you'll have well over 200 people that came here today.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Well,
I
for
feel
you.
very honored, believe me.
Well, we're honored to be here tonight, and thank you. Thanks for all your time. You've always shared.
I don't know how to thank you guys. You brought back a lot of memories, and it was fun talking about them.
Well, more to come.
More to come.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.